August 12, 1892, Pittsburgh Press, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A woman in black disturbs the quiet slumbers of a downtown family, her appearance unwelcome, and the house was vacated in very short order. How the ghost went about. No cause assigned for the strange visits paid. A Liberty Street mystery. There may be ghosts and there may not be, but at any rate, one family in the heart of the city have left the house in which they lived to find quiet and peace in another, and all because of a petite woman in black who has been making matters extremely lively for the family and several boarders who have made their home with the family. The woman in black seems to have some sort of hold on the back parlor of number 429 Liberty Street, for there it is that she, at all hours of the night, has been making herself familiar with the people who had occasion, up till 1 month ago, to occupy the room, having paid the rent punctually and behaved themselves in a very proper way. The house at 429 Liberty Street is a 3-story brick. It has been used for some 15 years past as a boarding and lodging house. Next door, at 431 is, or rather was, a house owned by the same man who owns 429. The house at 431 is torn down, and a new one is to be built. The supposed haunted house is vacant. The landlady, at the request of her lodgers, being obliged to get a house where the nightly hours of the occupants were not disturbed by the strange presence of a very unwelcome guest, the woman in black. In April last, Mrs. Essex, a very pleasant and a very intelligent woman, rented number 429. She had several boarders and roomers. 1 month ago, she moved to 427, where she now lives, and her boarders and roomers are with her. They sleep in peace, even in this hot August weather, for the woman in black does not bother them. A press representative went to see Mrs. Essex this morning, having heard that there was trouble in that neighborhood, especially with the woman in black. Before doing so, however, W.T. Clark, foreman of the new building now in the course of erection next to the alleged haunted house, was seen while in charge of a number of workmen engaged in putting up the walls of the house. He kindly showed the writer through the haunted house. The back parlor was seen, and the window opens into a court in the rear. Opposite is a 2-story brick building, which is connected on the 2nd floor with the house in which the ghostly presence has been seen. Mr. Clark said that during the time he had been there, he had seen nothing that aroused his suspicions. I have seen a woman in black here, but she lives on 4th Avenue and has some interest in the building. I don't know who she is, but I am not afraid of any ghosts that may be lurking about this vicinity. If there is a woman in black, I would like to see her. The back parlor was vacant when Mr. Clark and the writer entered it. The ghost was not visible. Mrs. Essex was seen later at her house, number 427. At first, she did not care to talk about the presence of ghosts in the house she had left so lately, but finally said, "I do not believe in ghosts of any kind. I want that distinctly understood, and I want to say that I never myself saw anything in the house that led me to believe that there is a ghost there. It was the testimony of others that made it necessary for me to leave the house. I will tell you the whole story, but bear in mind that I do not believe in ghosts." After moving, I first used the back parlor as a place in which to store away the household articles not needed at once. One night, I was in the back parlor when I thought my niece came into the room. She was then at my house. Thinking she was trying to frighten me, I said nothing, but I heard her slipping about in the room. When I came out, I was surprised to find she had not been in the room at all. I thought no more of the matter until, when I had the house fixed up, I put my son to sleep in the room. One morning he came to me and said, "Mother, what were you doing in my room last night?" I said I had not been in his room, but he insisted that he saw a woman standing at the bureau next to the window. I could not convince him to the contrary, and when for a number of nights he saw the same woman, a little woman in black clothes, standing at the bureau, he became uneasy and refused to sleep in the room. I had a girl, and she was put in the room. She came out one evening and said she had seen a woman in black in her room. We got a light, and 3 of us went in, but we saw nothing. I had a roomer, Mr. Hale. a salesman in a wholesale establishment in this city, and he was put in the back parlor. He said nothing and knew nothing of what we had seen till he got in this house, when he said to me, "Mrs. Essex, I am so glad you have moved away. I am now enjoying the only good sleep and rest I have had for a month." Then he told me that, night after night, he had seen a woman in black standing at the bureau, and that he didn't mention it for fear that the people in the house would think he was a believer in ghosts. Several people in the house saw this same woman, and I can't understand who it was or what it was. There was something, I know. It was so evident to all in the house that there was a something there we could not understand that I am perplexed. As I have said, I do not believe in ghosts, but I can't understand the matter at all. It is certainly mysterious. Among my roomers is an old gentleman who is a spiritualist. He knows of this occurrence and has been very anxious to have a medium brought here to hold a séance and find out what has been the trouble and who the spirit is. But I have objected to any such proceedings. I am satisfied to be out of the house and in quiet. I do not believe in spiritualism. I don't want any mediums about me. At present, we are all satisfied that the woman in black was in the other house. She has kept away from this one. I never knew anything about the other house that would give rise to the belief that there was a cause for its being haunted, and I am satisfied that there has not been any trouble there for the past 15 years. I do not wish any prominence in this matter. As I have told you, I am not a believer in either ghosts or in the doctrines of spiritualism. January 8, 1894, The Daily Signal, Middletown, Ohio. Driven out by ghosts. Clanking chains and a white-robed woman haunt the house. There is a house in Lee, Massachusetts, where people see strange figures of beautiful women, which come every night at 11 o'clock. There are also groans and sounds of clanking chains. The house was occupied by William Dolly until the other night, when he and his wife were so frightened by the ghostly visitations that they moved out. The house stands in a lonely spot on the road leading from the Columbia Mill in Lee to Bradley Street. Mrs. Dolly was the first to see the ghost. First, there were strange noises in the cellar and attic, and then, one night, about 11 o'clock, Mrs. Dolly was awakened by what she thought was the clanking of chains. She says the noise appeared to come from the second story, and as she looked out of her room, she saw the figure of a girl in white coming down the stairs. There is also a man whose ghostly presence appears leaning over the bed at night and disappears when the Dollys awaken and scream. The Dollys thought that perhaps they were the victims of nightmares, and so they resolved to test the ghost's genuineness. Accordingly, a young man, who was ignorant of what had been going on, was invited to come over and spend the night. He retired in good health and spirits about 10:30 o'clock. An hour later, he came rushing downstairs to the apartment of the Dollys, with pale face and bulging eyes. He said he was very sorry, but he thought he would go home. About 11 o'clock, he said that he was awakened by noises in the attic above his room. There was a jingling sound as of chains, which seemed to come down the stairway. Then there was a sort of ghostly light in his room, and a woman was leaning over his bedside. She had long hair hanging down her back. All at once, she vanished in a sort of mist. This corroborates Mrs. Dolly's vision, and she thought she had stopped in the house long enough. The family moved in about 2 years ago. Previous to this, it had been empty for some months. During the time the former occupants lived there, their daughter, a beautiful young woman with long, flowing golden hair, died. She was buried in the yard just back of the house. Some spiritualists who live near declare that the spirit of the young woman has come back to communicate with someone.